Well, Ms. Nancy, as we have heard together the report and focusing on the highlights of 2025 vis-à-vis the success stories of the Egyptian economy, we can see that Egypt is not only moving forward for attracting direct foreign investment, but for working in a sense of partnership, co-creating growth with international partners. How do you see the economic scene? We have lots of successes to be proud of, definitely.
Yes, I agree with you, and this report is very positive in the sense that Egypt's economic forecast looks great. As we review this year, 2025, we've achieved great, improvements in terms of, even though 2024 was a very strong year for FDI, 2025 continued to still we reached our targets, and in addition, we also continued to increase confidence for investors interested in looking to Egypt, as you said, also as a platform to produce their products and to trade their products through Egypt as a gateway to Africa, gateway to Asia, gateway to Europe. So our geographical location, being as strategic as it is, has basically helped us to win the confidence of investors, as well as to invite more partners to look to Egypt as the right place to trade from.
Yes, we have lots of ventures actually that are expected to happen in 2026, inking many agreements with other international partners, as international partners and investors see the Egyptian leadership, President Sisi's vision, as has been described in an article that has been published today in one of Egypt's newspapers. Prime Minister Madbouli paid heartfelt tribute to the president, describing him as a leader who has kept lighting Egypt's path from the past challenges to the present strength. So this sense of sustainability, achieving this durability, and also in a region which is volatile with lots of challenges there, how has Egypt succeeded to sustain success amidst all the challenges that we can perceive?
Exactly. It's this resilience that you describe comes from Egypt's long-term, very strategic, agenda in terms of its sustainable development, in terms of security and stability, because investors, the first thing they look at is security and stability of the government and of the country, and this is something that Egypt's been very successful in achieving. In addition, also the structural reforms and large-scale infrastructure projects has helped restore investor confidence and has helped position Egypt to become a hub for regional industrial and logistics, and so this has really helped Egypt achieve a lot of these partnerships and these milestones.
Yes, milestones, as you have mentioned, been achieved, and also lots of infrastructure projects had been there. Yes. We have the new administrative capital and the sense of attraction, the new Suez Canal economic zone. And here we have more than one important contribution on the international level, isn't it?
Yes, and you mentioned the Suez Canal economic zone. This has attracted a lot of investment, I believe over $1 billion worth of investments. A lot of countries have already established, their companies there. In addition, when you talk about Egypt's, being a great gateway and a hub for adding value to products, not just exporting raw materials, but actually producing and processing those products. Mm-hmm. So we have the best example, like foodstuff. Egypt's big on exporting foodstuff that's already been, where we've added value, and this is something that we contribute a lot to Africa and other neighboring countries.
Yes.
As well.
Egypt has been also a convening point, let me say, for capital and for innovation and opportunity. And those three focal points are considered to be a triangle of success. So how do you see, from the eyes of a global affairs expert, the horizon in 2026, talking economically? We have very positive signs, as you've mentioned, and there has been also a big cabinet meeting earlier in the day, a report that highlighted Egypt's successes economically in 2025. So definitely we're going to build on what has been achieved in 2025.
Absolutely. And when we say large-scale infrastructure projects, for example, that comes along with creation of jobs. When you talk about economic success, you cannot have sustainable economic success without the creation of jobs. So many of these infrastructure projects have created thousands of new jobs for Egypt's economy. So eventually this will translate to prosperity for, Egyptian households. And again, once you have how should I say, built confidence with investors and attracted more and more FDI, this also gives way for other development projects that will also create more jobs. So it seems to be very positive, and you mentioned before, in a time where not just in the region is very volatile, but economically the whole world has seen a lot of challenges, and Egypt seems to be able to overcome those because of its long-term strategic agenda.
Yes. We have also the Made in Egypt that serves local production actually and exports that reach unprecedented levels. Made in Egypt always makes us feel really proud. Even when we travel abroad and we see those products, the textiles, the cotton products, and also vegetables and fruit and more. So turning Egypt into a strategic hub for investment and industrial capacity, the President's vision also is to reach and to enhance this sense of competitiveness in the market. How are we working on enhancing competitiveness, as you see?
Yes, definitely. I've recently traveled to several different countries, and in my travels I've seen with great pride Egyptian products and how attractive Egyptian products, including like construction materials and food stuff, to our neighboring countries in Africa. I've seen not only that they are high quality, that the prices are competitive, but I think what's even better is that we complement each other. So when we talk about Egypt and other African countries, it's even, the focus isn't so much on the competitiveness, but how we complement each other. Because Africa's industrialization is supported by our, export of products like cement and other, construction materials. So there's this partnership where we actually, I love to use the term like South-South cooperation. Yeah. We're actually sharing in the development of our continent, as a whole. And Egypt is playing a very important role as an industrialized country, yeah. And being a hub, not just for supplying those important materials, but for logistics and transportation as well, which we know is very important.
Yeah. How are we unlocking doors in Africa? I mean, unlocking new opportunities also for African entrepreneurs and for emerging industries. You've mentioned that you've been traveling across Africa and you've seen how African countries are very much welcoming to this sense of partnership and collaboration with Egypt in that regard.
Absolutely, and most of our meetings are at the very high level meetings, and I have to say the one thing that I leave these meetings with a great sense of pride is our delegation is always told how admirable our president is and our government in the direction that the government is taking and our president is taking in building partnerships and, on a political and diplomatic level, strengthening bilateral relations between us and those various countries, cooperation, this is something, again, being, from private sector, very proud that we have the political will to be able to work and to create, good business relationships because our government has made way for that. And our reputation as a country, our reputation as even private sector companies in Egypt is very strong because we've built that, strong relationship, both politically, diplomatically, and even on the business side.
Yes, Egypt as an investment destination that is definitely very much welcomed in Africa, and Egypt being also an investment launcher which is very important. How are we working on that? We are actually, as an investment launcher in Africa, and made great strides with African countries in that respect.
Absolutely. Like I said, I've witnessed firsthand where we've seen other also Egyptian private sector companies going into these countries and sharing in the development of the various, neighboring countries. So this is something, again, we're very proud of, but it's also hearing from a lot of these, not just politicians or diplomats, but also businessmen saying, we like what we see in Egypt. It's a very strong model. We would like to, replicate a similar model in our country because we see the results that are very positive. So it's also sharing best practices, and this is what comes along with South-South cooperation, is other countries being able to benefit from our success stories as well and building from it. And looking again, as we as Egyptian, Egypt as a country are open to sharing those best practices and supporting, our fellow African countries in their development, and we can learn a lot from them in addition as well.
Yes, definitely. The President directives have been really central when we're talking about economic transformation in Egypt and vis-a-vis turning this vision into a tangible national success. And this is actually admired and has been strengthening Egypt's position regionally as well as globally. How are we working with Africa on that respect as well, and with international partners responding to this trust, in your opinion?
Yes, and again, we are working very strong on that, and I'm going back to the point of South-South cooperation. I'm sorry, I'm saying that a lot, but because the model itself of developing countries working together, like in our case is Egypt and other African nations, the model itself is not exploitive like other models we've seen. In fact, it's the opposite. It's about cooperation. It's about, again, sharing best practices and mutual benefit, win-win situations. And this is why what Egypt can offer our neighbors is very attractive. And if you see, even with the trends in FDI, we have attracted investments not just from the GCC region, but also from Asia and other parts of the world. And this is because, again, we have proven to be, a safe place, for these investments. But I think this is something, again, as an Egyptian, that makes me very proud of, our reputation and our positioning in Africa and the rest of the world.
Yes. What is also very important is creating this sense of space for the private sector to work hand in hand with the public sector, private sector with incentives, with a sense of competitiveness. So this has been also one of the successes and milestones of the economic successes for the country in 2025. How do you see the role that is played by the private sector also leading innovation and leading growth?
Yes, I mean, and again, this comes from our strategic, agenda in terms of like structural reforms. So now the private sector, things are a lot clearer. Look, nothing will, we can't say anything is perfect because we're always improving. But I think for the private sector now, things are easier, clearer, things are mainstreamed. The processes have, become easier. So now it's a little, easier to establish a company. It's easier now. There's so many different incentives, for companies. And this is why when you look at like the Suez Canal, economic zone, it's pretty much almost like a plug and play, type of scenario. So it just makes it so much easier, whereas companies can come in, investors can come in, and they can benefit from our regional, positioning, geographical positioning, in addition to our markets that we can open ways for, our free trade agreements, and the fact that we have all the raw materials here that we can also help in terms of their, those industrial projects.
Yes, more than one actually gain that has took place in 2025, the export performance that registered impressive gains in 2025, with the foreign investors continued to expand, spanning also to the industrial zone. Structural reforms, as Ms. Nancy said, that they were implemented in 2025 and that enhanced Egypt's capacity to attract not only the short-term foreign investment, but the long-term foreign investment. Like in a minute, because we have to wrap up in order to look at the top stories, then to celebrate the new year, 2026. So let me say your wishes for Egypt, for Egypt's economy, for the investment sector in a minute before we leave.
Okay. Obviously that we continue to succeed in terms of attracting FDI, that we continue, our strategy continues to be long-term strategy. Eventually we will start to see the results of that, that we continue to gain the confidence of investors, that we increase our partnership and our trade with our fellow neighbors in Africa, as well as other countries around the world, and that, again, we encourage more private sector, to be involved, not just within Egypt, but also within the region, and to just like many of the companies we've seen, to actually go and invest in other countries and to trade with other countries in Africa. This is very important.
Thank you so much, Ms. Nancy Hady, Global Affairs expert, for joining us on New Year's Eve. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year.
And thank you so much for highlighting Egypt's economic successes in 2025.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I thank you, dear viewers, for joining us. And our celebration continues here on Nile TV International, celebrating the advance of 2026. Hope it is a prosperous year. Happy New Year to all of you and all your beloved ones. Many thanks for watching. I'm Taghreed Hussein. Stay tuned to Nile TV International for more.